Did you know BYD sold over 4.27 million vehicles in 2024 alone? That's a global phenomenon, reshaping the automotive landscape worldwide. Meanwhile, in Canada, more than 125,000 auto workers are waiting for a miracle as major U.S. automakers begin to pull back from the region. In January 2025, the United States officially imposed a 25% tariff on all imported vehicles. For Canada, the rate is only 12.5%, but this comes with strict and complex conditions. Vehicles must have a high percentage of North American-made components to qualify. This is easier said than done, especially for highly integrated global supply chains. Immediately, automotive giants like GM, Ford, and Stellantis began scaling back production activities in Ontario. While not a full withdrawal, this resulted in fewer shifts, reduced output, and temporary layoffs that have placed workers in a difficult situation. Imagine Ontario, Canada's auto heartland, now struggling to keep pace due to policy changes just across the border. This has created a ripple effect through the local economy, impacting not only workers, but also small businesses and supply chain partners dependent on a vibrant auto sector. In light of these challenges, Canada has started to look beyond traditional partnerships. Enter BYD, China's electric vehicle giant. BYD is actively negotiating plans to open a manufacturing plant in Ontario. Other Chinese automakers like NIO and Geely have also been mentioned as pursuing R&D operations in Quebec. Imagine a Chinese EV factory emerging right in the heart of Canada's automotive territory. But there's more to this story. China needs critical minerals such as lithium and cobalt, plus access to clean energy resources, many of which are abundant in Canada. Canada, in turn, needs job creation, foreign investment, and a new industrial strategy after facing setbacks from U.S. companies' retreat. This appears to be a mutually beneficial exchange on the surface. Yet the situation is more complex and fraught with challenges than it might seem at first glance. For instance, integrating Chinese technology and capital into Canadian industries raises questions about long-term control and influence. Predictably, the reaction from Washington has been sharp and unmistakable. White House advisors have raised concerns that allowing Chinese firms to deepen their roots in North America's EV sector would effectively mean handing over crucial technology to a strategic rival. Electric vehicles today represent more than just transportation. They symbolize control over energy, dominance of supply chains, and broader geopolitical power. If Canada proceeds down this path, it risks becoming a key hub for Beijing's strategic expansion into the Western Hemisphere. The growing presence of Chinese corporations in such a critical sector fuels American concerns about potential technology leaks and loss of control over essential manufacturing processes. These issues extend well beyond economic competition. They touch on national security risks that policymakers cannot ignore. The U.S. government is closely monitoring developments, warning Canada of the strategic implications and urging caution in this evolving partnership. If the deal comes to fruition, a BYD manufacturing plant in Ontario could create between 2,000 and 5,000 direct jobs. Additionally, suppliers of batteries, semiconductors, and other high-tech equipment could experience significant growth opportunities along the expanded supply chain. Ontario could be transformed into the new Detroit for electric vehicles, this time powered by clean energy rather than fossil fuels. However, these bright prospects come with risks that cannot be overlooked. Canadian businesses may face the loss of decision-making power as they become intertwined with larger Eastern production networks. Smaller domestic companies could struggle to compete against heavily backed Chinese conglomerates with strong government support. Striking a balance between economic benefits and strategic autonomy is the biggest challenge Canada faces in this rapidly evolving landscape. With China's influence expanding and the U.S. government pushing back firmly, Canada must carefully weigh the costs and benefits of this pivotal move. The stakes have never been higher for the Canadian automotive sector, and the decisions made today will shape the industry's trajectory for decades.
Gasoline prices in the US are rising, oil imports are dropping, and a secretive deal worth over $1 trillion is quietly shifting away from American hands. Has Canada just changed the global rules of oil? Canada pivots. TMX is no longer just a pipeline project. In late 2024, the US imposed a new tariff package targeting three key Canadian sectors: oil, steel, and lumber, with rates as high as 25%. Canada responded not with words, but by reshaping its entire oil export strategy. Previously, the US was Canada's largest oil buyer, accounting for over 60% of total exports. But by May 2024, everything shifted. That's when the Trans Mountain Expansion TMX project officially entered operation. Backed by 34 billion Canadian dollars in investment, TMX increased its capacity from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels per day, turning into a strategic export route that channels Alberta's heavy crude directly to the Pacific, a double blow to the US economy. Just months after TMX came online, US oil imports from Canada plunged, dropping to 3.1 million barrels per day, the lowest level in 2 years. What made the shock more severe? Most American refineries, especially along the East Coast and Gulf, are designed to process Canadian heavy crude. Meanwhile, domestic US oil is mostly light crude, incompatible with these systems. As a result, refineries were forced to cut output, shift to less efficient modes, and absorb higher processing costs. The outcome: average gasoline prices in the US rose to $3.15 per gallon, with projections indicating California and Hawaii could exceed $4 per gallon by year's end. Refining giants from China, India, and Japan are purchasing Canadian crude at a combined volume of 500,000 barrels per day, with a projected trade value exceeding $1 trillion over the next decade. Russia enters, filling the gap, forming a new alliance. As Canada turns away, Russia steps in. In April 2025, Russian crude shipments from Western ports rose to nearly 2 million barrels per day, despite OPEC plus production cutbacks. Not stopping there, Russia increased Arctic oil shipments to China, bypassing sanctions using ice-class tankers and expanding its Northern Sea Route partnership with Beijing, a shorter sanction-proof route around the Suez Canal. Meanwhile, Ottawa has ramped up Arctic investment, deploying new radar systems, icebreakers, and security infrastructure. A new oil axis is emerging: Russia, China, and Canada, where each plays a strategic role. Hidden risks and long-term threats. Behind the geopolitical spotlight, TMX faces growing internal resistance within Canada. 3 major lawsuits have been filed by First Nations groups demanding cancellation of pipeline construction on sacred lands. Protests and encampments are actively blocking machinery along the route. Environmental groups warn that TMX could drive increased production of tar sands oil, which is 6 times more polluting than conventional crude. At the same time, a global risk looms. According to the International Energy Agency, global oil demand will peak by 2029, then decline as EV adoption and clean energy accelerate. If Asia, TMX's primary market, follows through with its green transition targets, Canada could find itself with excess capacity post-2030, forced to maintain an oversized pipeline without enough demand. TMX may become a geopolitical white elephant, a costly symbol of misaligned timing. $14 billion in just 72 hours. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But that's the price tag the US soybean export industry lost due to a single remark from Donald Trump. Was this the cost of a negotiation strategy or just another reckless political stunt? Donald Trump has reignited the idea of making Canada the 51st state of the US, claiming it would benefit Canadians with lower taxes, military protection, and health care. But here's the big question: would Canadians be willing to trade their self-determination for a US-based welfare system? Immediately, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau slammed the idea, reaffirming that Canada is an independent nation and will protect its sovereignty. His strong response sparked a wave of national unity. Millions of Canadians took to the streets, and social media erupted with messages like "Number Canada is not for sale." But the question remains, can this neighborly relationship survive such a divisive statement from Trump? Is this just political posturing, or is it something more? Trump's words weren't just political banter. They hit a nerve with Canadians. Protests erupted in major cities like Ottawa and Toronto, where citizens expressed deep concern about losing their unique cultural identity. From hockey festivals to the multicultural values that have been cultivated over decades. But the social unrest didn't stop at protests. It began to affect daily life. In provinces like Ontario, where the automobile industry has strong economic ties with the US, workers and businesses feared the worst. If tensions continue to escalate, they could lose critical job opportunities. Even in the US, border communities like Buffalo, New York, are now facing the prospect of rising living costs, especially as goods from Canada may soon face higher tariffs. So, it begs the question, can people on both sides of the border weather this storm? Canada is a crucial economic partner for the US, supplying 60% of the crude oil and 85% of electricity to states like Michigan and New York. The trade relationship is worth over $1.2 trillion annually, supporting millions of jobs across both nations. But if trade tensions continue to rise, the economic consequences will be far-reaching. A disruption in Canada's oil supply would send gasoline prices soaring in the US, raising transportation costs and food prices, putting pressure on the middle class, and fueling inflation. In Canada, key industries like oil in Alberta and automotive in Ontario could lose billions in revenue, threatening the livelihoods of thousands of workers. This situation isn't just a minor hiccup, it's a major challenge for both economies. Don't get me wrong, Trump's remarks aren't just idle chatter. They're shaking the foundation of US-Canada relations. Economically, any disruption in the USMCA agreement could have a domino effect, causing prices to rise and jobs to be lost. Socially, the notion of a 51st state is sowing division among Canadians, from the country's Indigenous communities to American families who rely on affordable goods. Trump might see this as a negotiating tactic, but the cost may be a loss of trust with a key ally. Canada is a key partner for the US in NATO and the G7, but does America realize that a strong neighbor is more valuable than just adding another state? The future of millions of people now hangs in the balance. And if we're not careful, everything could come crashing down. 71,000 containers stuck at ports. $28.4 billion in Boeing's market capitalization evaporated in just 48 hours. And this is just the beginning of the global shock called the US-China trade war. Ports are gridlocked. Retail is paralyzed. In early April 2025, the US announced a 145% tariff on over $300 billion worth of imports from China. In just 3 days, exports from China to the US dropped by 47%. In Shanghai, Ningbo, and Shenzhen, containers piled up. More than 71,000 containers were stuck. In California, 27 cargo ships waited offshore, with unloading times stretching to 96 hours, matching the record set during COVID. Container shipping costs surged from $1,950 to $6,820, a 250% increase in just 1 year. 10 days. Shipping companies began canceling contracts mid-route, citing unpredictable pricing due to sudden policy changes. Amazon, the e-commerce giant, canceled shipments on their way. Five Below, the discount retail chain, canceled $67 million worth of orders, equivalent to 11% of their Q2 inventory. China's retaliation, precise and quiet. On April 3, 2025, China quietly issued an order to halt all Boeing aircraft deliveries. No announcements, no arguments. In just 48 hours, Boeing lost $28.4 billion in market capitalization. 737 and 787 Dreamliner deliveries expected in Q2 and Q3 were all postponed. According to Bloomberg, this was a precise strike at America's #1 export symbol. Meanwhile, Airbus benefited. Shares rose 11.2% in Frankfurt as China redirected orders. This is no longer just trade. It's an attack on a symbol. And Boeing, as the industrial leader, is the most visible target. U.S. auto industry in crisis. From chip shortages to soaring prices. The consequences spread from consumer goods to the U.S. auto industry. Ford had to halt production of the F-150 Lightning, GM cut battery production by 60%, and Stellantis reduced production due to parts shortages. In the second week of April, 41,000 vehicles remained unfinished, resulting in over $1.6 billion in losses. Car prices surged significantly. Stellantis raised hybrid prices by 8%, and Ford increased the Mustang Mach-E price by $1,200. Even used cars saw a 4.1% price increase in just 1 week. The average price of a new car in the U.S. reached $47,770, an increase of $2,600 in April, relocating factories, scarce land, and risks in the shadows. In response, companies began relocating. Tesla moved Model 3 production to Berlin, Toyota reduced chip dependency by 30%, and Stellantis shifted production lines to Mexico. However, these solutions faced barriers. Hong and Cat Lai ports reached 94% capacity. India relies 60% on road transport, and Mexico increased waiting times at the Laredo border crossing to 12.5 hours. Moreover, China tightened exports of rare earths, causing Ford, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon to experience critical supply shortages. The earliest forecast for alternative sources is late 2026. Meanwhile, China quietly sold U.S. government bonds, reducing its holdings to the lowest level since 2011.
Why is it that the orchestra can play off an Oscar winner, but not the president? Trump's speech went on so long. His speech was 10 minutes longer than The Lion King.
A truly profound question from Kimmel. Why can an orchestra finish an Oscar-winning score without a hitch, but Trump's speech stretches on for 10 minutes longer than The Lion King? Not just a simple jab. This is a powerful hit at Trump's long-winded speeches. But of course, Trump can never resist the spotlight whenever he steps on stage. The message here is simple. The angrier Trump gets, the more entertaining the story becomes. Imagine Kimmel creating such a political dish, both spicy and sweet, with just one simple jab, becoming a power game that keeps the audience laughing non-stop.
Donald and Melania's 20th wedding anniversary. 20 years is a long time, especially for Melania. This morning, Trump paid tribute to his longest-serving wife by reposting this AI image of himself with a lion.
What a special way to commemorate Trump and Melania's marriage. Nothing says emotionally deep like an AI image of Trump standing next to a lion. Surely, in Melania's mind, lion might be the perfect comparison for Trump. But wait. After noticing people talking about their 20th wedding anniversary, Trump decided to post another photo. This time, of Melania literally pushing him away. If that's not the symbol of a lasting marriage, I don't know what is. Such romantic moments can only be highlighted by internet memes, and Twitter didn't miss its chance. Let the social media world analyze every intimate moment.
As is tradition, except for 4 years ago when Trump refused to do it, the outgoing first couple welcomed the incoming president and first lady, which was interesting to watch. Trump actually got involved in Melania's outfit for the ceremony. A lot of people are talking about it. He told her he thought it would be super hot if she dressed like a goth Al Capone.
Oh yes. Trump couldn't resist participating in Melania's outfit for an event. One of the most memorable moments of the power transition ceremony was when Trump advised his wife to dress like a goth Al Capone. And so, Melania actually did it. Surely, in Trump's mind, that was high fashion. People might have thought Melania looked like Carmen Sandiego in a black outfit. But who's to say she wasn't looking for a quick escape out of the window?
To Melania, what do you think? And she said, you want to do this again? I'm going to get hell when I say this, but her feet are absolutely aching, you know, those heels. And we thought we were leaving, we were going home. She said, darling, I love you so much, but my feet are killing me. I said, honey, let me just see how far it is. I asked the president. Oh, not that long, maybe 400 or 500 yards. That's 5 football fields. And he said, can you make it? She said, we're going to make it no matter what. We're going to make it because we have the damn guy.
And so, we have another Valentine's Day moment. Melania, despite the agony from her high heels, insists to Trump that they'll make it the 500-yard journey. A part of this story shows Trump truly doesn't get it. It's as though he wants to test Melania to her breaking point. But all this really does is add to the absurdity of their public relationship, like a reality comedy show we can't look away from.
You feel like you're in a different space now than you were 8 years ago?
I feel I was always me the first time as well. I just feel that people didn't accept me, maybe. They didn't understand me the way maybe they...
This question once again makes everyone think about Trump's life. Has he changed after 8 years? Surely it's not that simple, and this story is turning more and more into a comedy for everyone. People on Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram keep dragging each other into the wedding photo world of Trump and Melania. And guess what? People can never get enough of these comedic situations. 1 trillion USD, the amount China had previously invested in American companies, from Hollywood to Wall Street, is now frozen. Why did China decide to freeze this massive investment? On March 17, 2025, China suddenly froze all investments in the US, reducing the capital flow from $46 billion in 2016 to just $0 in 2025. This not only shocked investors, but also sent shock waves through US companies and financial institutions. This is the result of prolonged tensions between the two nations and escalating protectionist policies. Along with liquidating US bonds, China also reduced loans to US businesses, forcing many companies to seek alternative funding sources from domestic funds, increasing costs and financial risks for companies. This has lowered the stability of the financial markets and negatively impacted international investors' confidence in the US economy. The broader impact is also clear. Foreign direct investment in the US dropped by 22% in 2024 and is expected to decrease by an additional 19% in 2025. Not stopping there, investment flows from international funds continued to withdraw from US ETFs, with $120 billion pulled out in the first 90 days of 2025. This puts additional pressure on the US economy as investment from major partners is being replaced by alternatives from countries no longer dependent on the US. American companies will face a shortage of capital, higher borrowing costs, and greater financial risks in the near future. With a significant drop in investment, US businesses are facing a severe financial crisis. In response, many companies issued $430 billion in junk bonds in 2024, a 38% increase from the previous year, with the average interest rate on loans rising to 9.6%. This pushed the financial costs of companies higher, making it harder for them to maintain operations and expand. A specific example is Hartwell Tech, a manufacturing company in Boston, which lost $180 million in capital from China and had to borrow at an interest rate of 11.3% from private equity funds. Many large projects, such as the $8 billion battery factory in Michigan and the $3.1 billion robotics center in Nevada, were either delayed or canceled. This is a direct result of the lack of international capital and its powerful impact on the US economy. To cope with the increased import tariffs from China, over $500 billion in Chinese goods were hit with a 22% tariff, causing the prices of consumer goods, especially household items, to rise significantly. The cost of household goods has increased by 16.7%, putting significant pressure on every American household, as they will have to spend an extra $1,950 this year. Furthermore, profits of companies in the S&P 500 fell sharply in Q4 2024, increasing only by 1.2%, a significant drop from 4.5% in Q3. Inflation remains at 3.6%, while wages have not kept up. Citizens are bearing the burden of rising living costs, while real income remains stagnant, directly affecting their daily lives. Not only has China frozen investments in the US, but it is also implementing a long-term strategy to restructure the global financial order. European companies such as BASF have invested $10 billion in China, while countries like France and Saudi Arabia have signed LNG contracts with China, bypassing the USD. This shows a significant shift in the way international payments are made, with China promoting its digital yuan and expanding its payment system in 13 countries. The increased use of the yuan instead of the USD in international transactions could weaken the USD's position in the global financial market. This will create a shock for economies that rely on the US dollar, as countries will have additional options besides the dollar to conduct international transactions. If this trend continues to grow, the US will face a decline in its global financial power.
On Tesla in China. You've got companies like NIO, companies like Lishan, these Chinese NEV makers that are frankly as good, if not better than Tesla right now.
BYD achieved $107 billion in revenue in 2024, surpassing Tesla's $97.7 billion. Along with this, their vehicle production increased tenfold from 450,000 units to 4.27 million in just 4 years. Can this Chinese company completely change the automotive industry? BYD's remarkable growth. In 2024, BYD achieved $107 billion in revenue, surpassing Tesla's $97.7 billion. This is not a fluke, but proof of their explosive growth in the global auto industry. In just 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, BYD's vehicle production skyrocketed from 450,000 to 4.27 million units. This is truly impressive, especially as they have begun to dominate challenging markets like Italy and Spain. These numbers not only reflect growth, but also showcase a smart strategy that has rapidly reshaped the global automotive map. With this growth rate, BYD is not just challenging giants like Tesla, but has the potential to completely reshape the auto industry in the near future. Tesla's decline. Meanwhile, Tesla, while still a major name, is beginning to face stagnation. Although their revenue remains stable, Tesla's growth rate is slowing down. They still haven't fulfilled their promise of a $25,000 car, and even the Cybertruck has been repeatedly delayed. While Tesla still holds its market share, BYD is surpassing them in both revenue and production. These delays and the lack of new models have caused Tesla to lose its competitive edge, especially as BYD continues to expand and offer electric and hybrid models that meet market demand. BYD's models like the Dolphin and Seal are more affordable yet still deliver high performance and quality, a challenge Tesla can't easily compete with. Technology and production costs. The answer lies in technology and production costs. BYD developed blade battery technology using lithium iron phosphate, LFP, which allows vehicles to charge fully in just 5 minutes and comes with much lower production costs compared to Tesla's NMC batteries. While Tesla uses LFP in some models in China and Europe, BYD fully controls this technology, managing the entire supply chain from production to distribution, giving them a huge advantage in cost savings and risk reduction. BYD not only leads in technology, but is also ahead of Tesla in product strategy. While Tesla remains committed to a fully electric car strategy, BYD has successfully developed hybrid models like the Super DM, which run on electricity most of the time and only use gas when necessary. Tesla, focusing on pure electric vehicles, has neglected this hybrid segment. This has allowed BYD to dominate the market, especially in regions where charging infrastructure is still limited. Speed and consistency in strategy. BYD's growth comes not just from product development, but also from an extremely rapid expansion strategy. In just 5 years, they grew from 450,000 units to 4.27 million units. Meanwhile, Tesla seems to be struggling to maintain the same rapid growth it once had. The numbers don't lie. BYD has surpassed Tesla in production, technology, manufacturing, and pricing. While Tesla is falling behind, if BYD maintains this strategy, can Tesla retain its position?